Give it a bit and then start. Give it like a minute.
Hello everyone. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy to be here. Not Miss Red today, just me. Welcome to Pentab Kids. The last day of June. It's a little bit warm on the outside in BC today, but it's a great day. And today we're going to be looking at another man in the Bible. You'll see his name shortly. But today we're going to mix up things a little bit. So look on the screen, it's a different look. We're starting with our memory verse today, and then we're going to get into something pretty funny after this. The memory verse today, keep this in mind, is coming back later. He said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. That's Mark 16:15. So we're going to come back to that later. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to who? All creation. Hey, maybe we can do something a little bit fun. I'm going to let you see some fun stuff. What do you think about just watching some fathers have fun? We just had Father's Day and we're still celebrating when?
Oh, conquer the Boston accent. Boom, you lost your clean. Boom, you clean. When I clean your face off, business spot. Boom, you clean. Are you clean? Boom. Oh, gosh, you get. Boom, you clean. Boom. Told you I needed to make it clean. Boom, you clean. Boom. You fed, you clean. Boom.
One more. Oh, that's funny. Look at this guy. All right, that was just okay. We're good. We're back. We're back and putting it back on full screen so that we're going back to our scripture verse. And as I just said, he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. That's going to be important because the guy that we're talking about today is Paul. Ta-da! Paul, the Apostle Paul. He is a very important man in the Bible. Paul, you say? Yes. Last week we talked about Abraham. You remember? We talked about him being the husband of Sarah. We talked about his son Isaac and how Abraham wanted, well, once God asked him to sacrifice Abraham and sacrifice Isaac. And it was just a test, but Abraham passed the test. Isaac survived, and we learned that Abraham became the father of the great nation of Israel, which is still a huge nation today. And in fact, the Bible follows that whole family line to show us the love of God. God used them to show us a lot of examples of his character, of his heart, of his grace, of his mercy. So Abraham was pretty important. But today, we just said we're talking about Paul. Who is Paul, you say? What does he have to do with anything? Well, you're seeing a map right now. The map behind me is a map of the Mediterranean Sea. You can see here, we can see Italy and Greece and Turkey, and over here is Syria and Lebanon and Jordan and all these different places. This is the world of Paul. He traveled all of this area when he was ministering, when he was being an evangelist, a missionary, right? Have you ever been to Turkey, anyone? Anybody here online has been to Syria? Jordan? Has anybody here been to Israel or Egypt? Wow, if you said yes, you're pretty fortunate. But today, we're just going to look at a long time ago when Paul was alive. That's centuries ago now. But very important, still relevant today because Paul has been considered as probably the most popular apostle, like the number one guy that really pushed Christianity at the time in the Mediterranean region. He went left, right, up, down, just to make sure that everybody he met heard about Jesus. And this is really important because, he didn't exactly start out as kind as it seems. Paul was Saul when we first meet him. Okay? When you first meet him in the scriptures, he's known as Saul, and he was working really hard to squash, mash up, persecute Christians. Those that were following this Jesus that had been walking the earth. You remember, Jesus was on the earth. And he had disciples, and a lot of people saw him, and then he went to heaven and said, go in all the world and preach the gospel. Well, not everybody at the time thought that that was a good idea. Paul was one of them. Well, Saul at the time. He did not like that idea. And why? Well, it's because he believed at the time that the messages of Christ were going against, the teachings of the Hebrew religion, all the things that he knew as a boy. Let's see what that meant to him.
Paul was born in a city called Tarsus. Paul turned into a real bully. He found ways to get people who were following Jesus thrown in jail, beat up, and even killed.
Wow, Paul's not so cool. Look at this.
And Saul was there, encouraging them to stone Stephen. Soon, he would try to stop any followers of Jesus. He went from house to house, arresting people, dragging off to prison anyone, including women, who believed in Jesus.
I believe they are trying to escape. They travel out of Judea, through Samaria and Galilee, all the way to Syria. There is a stronghold of these disciples of Jesus living here in Damascus. I require a personal letter from you, the high priest, to the leaders of the synagogues in Damascus, asking their support that I may end this infection once and for all. These followers of Jesus disregard the law of Moses.
You shall have the letter.
And with it, I shall clean up Damascus within the week.
Oh, whoa, you see how serious this guy is? I know it looks bad, pretty bad. Paul, well, is not a happy camper. He wants to kill everybody. But listen, ultimately in the end, the story of Saul, which we talked about, gets changed to Paul, becomes a story about redemption. And we see the story as a testimony that shows that nobody is too far that Jesus can't reach, that the redemptive love of God, that the grace of God can't reach. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that wonderful? God's grace is so wide and his love is very deep. One day, Saul was traveling to Damascus to arrest more Christians. And Jesus appeared to him in a blinding light. Can you imagine? Picture yourself. What in the world is that? That's what I would say. Well, let's see what happened to Saul at the time. This light came up. Jesus was trying to get his attention. Hey man, you're not doing good. Let's see what happens.
Saul,
Why do you persecute me?
It sounds like thunder. are only hurting yourself by fighting me.
Who are you, Lord?
I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. I have appeared to you for this purpose, to make you a minister and a witness, both of the things which you have seen and of the things which I will yet reveal to you. I will deliver you from your people, as well as from the Gentiles to whom I now send you, to open their eyes in order to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among those who are sanctified by faith in me.
Whoa! Whoa! Did you see that? Did you hear that? Can you imagine you are in your car doing your own thing, driving you're in the back, your folks are driving you someplace, and all of a sudden a bright light or a great noise or something, and there's a voice from heaven talking to you in the back seat? Oh, that would be epic, but scary at the same time. Now, let's continue because something else happens to Saul.
Saul, are you all right?
I cannot see. I am blind. Take me to Damascus. Jesus spoke to me and I will obey. He commands me to speak to my own people and show them his way. Must have hit his head hard.
You take him to Damascus as he commands. I shall return to Jerusalem. The high priest will not be amused.
The high priest will not be amused. The folks back at the where they came from that gave him the letter, Sanhedrin, they would not be amused either. They wanted Paul to go and persecute. Now it's going to be the new guy, the new converted Saul to Paul. Whoa. For 3 days, this new guy who had just heard the voice of God stayed at the high priest's house. His name is Ananias, and he stayed there for 3 days learning, spending hours learning about this Jesus who he had been just talking pretty bad about. He read, he prayed, he fasted. Some of you know what fasting means. It means you leave food out of your whole diet for whatever period of time, a day or two, and he just focused on God. That is hard, but it's sacrifice for a special reason. And then after that, he was ready. He felt he was ready to begin his life, his conversion life as a follower of Jesus Christ. Oh, what a conversion, right? He felt like he was now prepared to do whatever it would take. He would go wherever he was led, all for the cause of Christ. Let's see what he does.
Paul became a missionary. A missionary is a person who goes to new places and tells people about Jesus. And even while he was doing this, Paul was writing lots and lots of letters telling other people about Jesus. Now sometimes, Paul found out that not everybody wanted to hear about God, but he told them about God anyway, just to make sure everybody had a chance to hear.
He told them about God anyway, just to make sure, here's a key point, everybody had a chance to hear. He was really deciding that he was going to be a missionary for Jesus. He was going to push the gospel hard. He wanted everybody to be just as excited as he was with this new idea, this newfound love for Jesus, this newfound grace and mercy that he was feeling in his heart. And you know how it feels when Jesus is on the inside, right? You're excited. You just want to say, hey, do you know him? That was Paul. You can see that his life as a missionary was going to let, things change in his life. Let's see how bad or how good.
The stories of Paul's travels and how people receive this message, that's what the third part of Acts is all about. For some time, Paul's home base had been in the city of Antioch. And from there, he and his co-workers went out on 3 road trips, traveling by land and by sea to strategic cities throughout the empire.
In each city, Paul's custom was to go first to the Jewish synagogue where his people gathered. He'd start teaching and showing how the Messianic king promised in the Hebrew scriptures is Jesus of Nazareth.
And some believed this news, others didn't, and still others thought this message was so misleading and dangerous, they would incite riots to kick Paul out of town.
Oh, poor Paul. He was just trying to do what he wanted to do, what he felt led to do, and there were not very many happy campers. Well, there were many happy, but there were a few that were going to let him know that this was not a good thing. Not in their minds, anyway. Life as a missionary was not always easy, as you can see. And do you know that he was even thrown in jail? Let's stop here and think. This is a dedicated man. What does dedication mean? You guys who are in grade 1, 2, and 3? Dedication means you are really, really going to do what you said you were going to do. You're committed, right? Anybody who is in grade 6, 7, 8, you know what that means. You are dedicated. You've got it covered. Comes what may. If you are dedicated, you are committed. And even jail didn't stop this guy. Could you be in Paul's shoes? Now, that is a loaded question. I know, loaded. Could you decide to go in all the world, like our memory verse said, and preach the gospel to every creature, everyone? Tell Jesus to everyone. Show Jesus to everyone. Be Jesus. Represent Jesus to everyone. Could you handle being a missionary? Could you? Right now, maybe as I'm speaking, there's somebody, some of you, one maybe, that you're listening and you're thinking about what I'm saying. Maybe you're not sure, but maybe somehow you hear a voice. Maybe it won't be today, maybe it won't be tomorrow, next week, sometime. Somebody here might choose to be a missionary, just like Paul. It is important because the world needs to hear. That's what our memory verse said. Go ye in all the world. Who is here listening that thinks maybe that's for you? Now, I did say it's not going to be easy, but it's important. And if you are committed to that and if you feel that's for you, go for it. Just know that you would need the grace and the love of mercy, the love and mercy of God behind you, and it will be behind you. Because God's love, we said before, is deep and wide. Mark 16:15. Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to all the nations, all creations. I don't know. I feel maybe there's somebody out there that will make that decision. I am so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. Go with the grace of God. Now, let's continue with the story. There is another reminder. Can you read it with me? He said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Mark 16:15. Right? Awesome. Now, let's see what continues to happen to Paul as he's ministering.
Right. And so in every city where Paul announced the message about Jesus, people were being transformed by God's Spirit to become new kinds of humans.
So Paul would stay in that city and teach them the way of Jesus.
And then he would leave for a new city.
This was a difficult life. Paul had to endure a lot of pain and a lot of suffering.
Yeah, and he did so because he believed that his own hardships were a reenactment of Jesus' suffering and death for others. He said it was God's own love that drove him to share the story of Jesus no matter the cost.
Oh, no matter the cost. That's tough. That's tough. And you know, his friends, as you could see there in the clip, they were beaten, they were pushed, they were stoned, they were put in jail. Do you know that Paul was even in a shipwreck? Yeah, like the whole ship broke up and he had to they tried to get to land, and it was a miracle that they survived. He went through a lot. And yet, the good news is God kept Paul and continued to help him and God continued to find even more ways to get more people to believe in Jesus because of Paul's commitment and dedication. And here's the point I mentioned before about, at the beginning when I talk about the grace of God and the love of God, Paul's story is about this, the grace, the love, the redemptive love of God. As we've seen it so far, God was being merciful to someone who hated Christians before. He was being merciful to someone who did not show much love to others before. But that's how God is. Despite Paul's failures and faults, God still continued to use him mightily. Isn't that incredible? God still continued to use him. But make no mistake, Paul was very aware of his situation. He wasn't perfect, and he didn't pretend to be perfect. He understood, and he tried to be repentant every day for any wrong. In fact, he said in another verse, I die daily. And he encourages us to die daily. That means we try and quench the flesh, this body that just thinks about bad things. And we must really uplift our spirit and try and think about Jesus and good things. He goes on in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 9. I'll read it for you. He says, Paul writes, for I am the least of the apostles. That means he thinks of himself as the last one, the worst one. I am the least of the apostles, and I do not even deserve to be called an apostle because I persecuted the church of God. That's what he said. Verse 10, but by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace to me was not without effect. No, I worked harder than all of them. Oh! The grace of God, he said, was in him to carry him forward. The love of God propelled him on. That means kept pushing him on. You know, like a ship, a motorboat. Oh, yeah. And all the time he knows he wasn't perfect, and he didn't profess to be perfect. He didn't tell the world he was perfect. In fact, he talked about his thorn in the flesh all the time. But that could be you today. Maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe next year. That could be you, brave you, reaching out to minister to someone, reaching out to be a minister of Jesus for the cause. It doesn't mean that you have to be shipwrecked or in jail or punched in the face. It just means you need to be a light, a beacon of light, a light like a flashlight for your friends, for your neighbors, for your family members who might not come to church with you, to see God in you, to see the Jesus that you love shine. They need to see this, right? You are the light, the Bible says, of the world. You are the salt of the earth. Woo! Those are beautiful descriptions of who we can be. And if you want to be a real, true minister, a genuine minister of Jesus to others, that's all it means. That even though you have failures, just like Paul, and even though you have faults, just like Paul, just like me, we still can find the grace and the love of God. We can still do what we really feel led to do. If you are there feeling that there's more that you can do, then do it. Maybe you can be kinder. Maybe you can be gentler, more patient. You can share more. You can smile more. You can actually share Jesus, like actually have a conversation. Hey, do you know Jesus? You know, I know you're sad today, but when I think of Jesus, the Jesus I know, he makes me happy. Or, hey, do you know this song? Whenever I hear this song, it makes me feel happy. That is ministry, folks. That is ministry. Making somebody feel better, helping them along the way. You understand? Do you want to be like Jesus? Here's a thought. When you make somebody see the Jesus in you, it's awesome. And then, here's the best part. They then want to be just like you. Isn't that amazing? That's the end of that. what a study. The disciple, Paul, the apostle Paul, and hey, he had a long life. Sad ending though. I won't worry you with that. Why don't we end on a really good note? I have news that it is the end of the school year. What does that mean? Ha! Graduation time. I'm going to get off the screen so that you can, oh, whoops, I went too far. I'm going to get off the screen here. I hope I remember how to do that. Yep, there we go. And I am going to show you some fun stuff because we have some friends at Pentab who have recently graduated, and I want to celebrate them. Yes, we do. So here we go with some awesome music for these guys. I love this. And I just gonna press play, and then
And so in every city.
oh, that's not it. There it is. The class of 2021. Well, some of them. Next week we'll try and have some more pictures, but right now let's present Mia Kay. She's graduating from high school, and she's gonna go off to college in September. Congratulations, Mia Kay! And Nesta, there he is with that broad smile. He just also graduated from high school. These two folks are friends of Pentecostal Tabernacle. They help in our summer camp, and we love them so much. Woohoo! Now for the elementary school. Look at these three faces. Talia Jade is leaving elementary school, and she's going to high school in September. Daniela is leaving elementary school and is going to high school in September. And Odelia is leaving elementary school and going to high school in September. Congratulations, guys. We're so proud of you guys. We're so happy for you. Pentab salutes you guys. I know there are graduates in the audience listening now. You just graduated from maybe kindergarten or preschool, and you're going to elementary school in the fall. Mwah! So happy for you, so proud of you. Bring your picture, okay? Share them with us so that we can put it out there and make the whole world say, congratulations, we love you, we're so happy for you. So that's the end of our show today. We're just excited to be sharing Jesus with you, and we hope to see you soon. Church opens next week. Yay! Goodbye from Pentab Kids, and a lot of love from me to you.